Two teenage siblings seemingly vanish, triggering an Amber Alert out west. Their mom says they may have been taken by their older siblings to be brought back to a fundamentalist religious community in Utah. The person who may have been involved in taking them, she says, is her oldest daughter who went missing in 2023 and hasn't been seen since. Also, making this case even more concerning, the chilling words from FLDS leader Warren Jeffs from behind bars. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Since we learned on Sunday last week that 15-year-old Rachelle Fischer and 13-year-old Allen Fischer went missing, triggering this Amber Alert, we've learned that their mother apparently has had concerns about this happening for years. Before we get to the latest from law enforcement, you need to understand the family dynamics at play in this story, as well as the religious dynamics. These are pictures of the siblings that have been missing since Sunday of last week. Police say their mom returned home from a Bible study class, and these two were gone. And at the time of this recording, they are still missing. Hopefully, they are found safe. They live in a small Idaho town about an hour north of Idaho Falls in the eastern part of that state. And the reason that the Fisher kids moved here is because their mom left a controversial, close-knit, extreme religious group. It's a community known as the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, it's important to note that the FLDS Church is not connected to the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The FLDS practices polygamy, and it's also been involved in cases over child marriages, sexual abuse, and human trafficking. And that is where Warren Jeffs comes into play. And if you have been following this group that has been labeled a cult by many, you know exactly who Warren Jeffs is. He is currently serving a life sentence after he was convicted in 2011 of sexual assault of a child under the age of 14. He is still believed to be the leader of the FLDS Church from behind bars. He's currently in a Texas prison. According to ABC News, 24 of Warren Jeffs' 78 wives are underage. I'll tell you the specific words that Jeffs has said from behind bars that pertains to this case we're talking about with these two missing teenagers and why they are raising concerns for many people who have been following the church about the well-being of these kids. According to the Jefferson County Sheriff in Idaho, the children may be trying to make it to Trenton, Utah. That's where an FLDS group is located. It's more than 3 hours away from where they were living in Idaho, just over the state line in Utah. Now, their mom, who has been very vocal, left the FLDS church roughly 5 years ago, and there she says she was a plural wife in the polygamist group. So she was one of multiple wives that a husband had. Court records show that after she left that group in Utah, escaped the FLDS church, she says she won custody of her 3 children. And those 3 kids are Rachelle and Allen. Those are the 2 who were missing since Sunday. And then you have the girl you see here. This is Allen Fischer, who is now 18 years old, but she's been missing since January of 2023. And to this day, authorities do not know where she is. But according to East Idaho News, the mother of the Fisher children believes that Allen may be behind her 2 siblings vanishing, as well as her ex-husband, who she won custody from. Again, at the time of this recording, these children are still missing. That Amber Alert is still active. So here is the latest we have at this point from law enforcement. On Tuesday, the Jefferson County, Idaho Sheriff posted that the vehicle they initially put the bolo out for in looking for the 15-year-old and the 13-year-old, Rachelle and Allen, that was actually not the car they were in. They also said, and this was a big update, after initially saying they believe they were headed to Utah, that they're not sure whether they're in Utah or maybe they're hiding out in the immediate area or being held in the immediate area. We don't know the circumstances surrounding this. Now, in the first post that the sheriff put up, they said that they believed that the children had left, and deputies had said they believed the children left, in their words, willingly for their religious beliefs. But it does seem that there's a bit of a debate about that from people who have been monitoring the FLDS church. Their mom told KSL TV that the children in the past, they have tried to leave because they're, in her words, brainwashed. But then there's a group called Holding Out Help And HELP stands for Helping, Encouraging, and Loving Polygamists, that posted on its Facebook page with pictures of the children, quote, urgent FLDS abduction. And this is where the convicted sex offender and leader of the FLDS church could come into play when we talk about Warren Jeffs, and it is creating a lot of concern. The group HELP told East Idaho News that the teenagers may be in grave danger because of recent revelations from Warren Jeffs in the last couple of years, stating that FLDS children need to die so they can resurrect as pure beings. Joining us now is the news director of East Idaho News, Nate Eaton. It is great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for taking the time to be with us. We were talking a bit about Warren Jeffs and some of the revelations that he said in the last couple of years. When it comes to the case of these two missing teenagers, why is it important to know about what Warren Jeffs said?
Well, for those people that believe in Warren Jeffs, his revelations have become increasingly frightening. He has basically said that all of the children need to be gathered, need to be purified, and need to be sanctified to return to heaven. And you can interpret that as reading they need to be killed, they need to die. In fact, many people that have studied this group have said that this is similar to something like Waco or other cult groups where the leader becomes so obsessed with gathering their people, and then they end up taking their lives. So these children very well could be in danger, and the mother is just fearing that the worst could happen, while also maintaining hope that they could be found.
For a lot of people, this story began on Sunday when they were reported missing. But I know you have been talking about this family, speaking with their mother for years related to the case of their other missing daughter. What can you tell us about how all of that factors into what's playing out right now?
Yeah, it is all connected. So back in 2023, New Year's Day, Elizabeth Roundy wakes up and her oldest daughter, Allen Fischer, is gone. She was 16 at the time. And within a few days, they found a vehicle that she had been traveling in at a truck stop with a note to her mother that basically said, I'm not coming home. I'm safe. I'm fine, but I've left. And Elizabeth believes that members of the FLDS church, specifically her ex-husband, who was still involved in the church, helped abduct her daughter. And for 2 years, her daughter has been on the run. She's now 18. So even if she is found, it's up to her whether she goes back to her mom. And Elizabeth the mother believes that they're trying to do this to her other children. And if these are the people that abducted them, they have succeeded, because they have been able to take her two other children, Allen and Rachelle. Elizabeth was raised in the FLDS. She was faithful to the FLDS. And years ago, the leader came to her and said, you need to go away. They basically exiled her from the faith. She moved to Nebraska by herself with one of her children, no money, took a job at a hotel doing housekeeping, and then over the next few months and years realized that what she was involved in was not for her. And that's when she branched out on her own, and it took, great courage. She was nervous to come forward and speak about this, but she says she's not the only former FLDS member whose children are being abducted and taken. That's why she is so, public in her painful journey.
Has she said whether she believes that Alintra had anything to do specifically with her two other children, Rachelle and her brother, Allen, leaving the house?
She 100% believes. She believes that Alintra was watching with other FLDS members, watching their home. And the mother just decided to go to Bible study on a Sunday night. The kids said they were going to go down to the shop. It's a big property. There's, different buildings on the property. They were going to go down and get on the internet while she went to Bible study. And she comes home 2 hours later and they're gone. But yeah, she believes that Alintra was watching. She had seen suspicious vehicles driving back and forth in front of the property and around the property over the past few weeks. So she very much believes that her eldest daughter was involved.
And in cases involving the FLDS, for authorities, and in this one, you have the FBI involved out of Utah, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office in Idaho, that are working trying to find these kids. In cases like Alintra's case, does the fact that it's the FLDS make it difficult for law enforcement to gain access that they might need to find somebody?
Absolutely. 100%. Because these members aren't going to come forward and volunteer information. it can be very hard for the investigators to do a thorough investigation because people don't cooperate and they hide the children. When Elizabeth after she was exiled from the church, she went back to get her children from the FLDS. They were hiding in cabinets at the top of the kitchen. They were hiding under the stairs. They were scared to death to leave their group and go with their mother, not realizing that their mother was there to protect them in their own interest. And so that's why Elizabeth is concerned that her children may be fed false information and false teachings, not realizing that what they're being told is not correct, not accurate. And so, it can be hard for the police to get to the bottom of it. And that's why, it's been over 2 years since Alintra disappeared and they never were able to find her.
And for people, I mean, I remember when Warren Jeffs, there was a big, I would say like 2011 or so, like CNN really started following. That's the network I remember that really started looking into Warren Jeffs and would go down to where he was living, which was like on the Utah-Arizona border, if I remember correctly. And I'm going to ask about Warren Jeffs in a moment, but for people who are just learning about the FLDS through this story, some of your coverage, how would you characterize this group and what makes them kind of this unique and very controversial religious group?
That's a good question. So there's the mainstream LDS or Mormon Church, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That church has like 16 million members. Those are the mainstream. The FLDS is a breakoff of that church from decades ago, maybe even longer. And that group, over the years, depending on the leader, the prophet, the president, has changed, beliefs back and forth. When Warren Jeffs took over many years ago from his father, Rulon Jeffs, things became much more strict. The color red was banned. People in the community could not wear red. All of the money earned had to go to the church and then was distributed out. He was deciding who would marry whom. He was deciding which people would live with which people. I mean, he was controlling basically every aspect of their lives. Children could not go out and play. They couldn't ride on bicycles. It was always studying the scripture and whatnot. Well, Warren Jeffs ends up getting arrested, as you know, and that's really, when the FBI did those raids that you were talking about in 2011, the communities, some of the members left. It kind of became fractured a bit, but then Warren's son took over as the proxy leader. I mean, Warren is still leading the church from prison, sending in revelations written, but his son is actually, on the ground leading them. And Elizabeth and other members have told me that the son could be far more dangerous than Warren and far more obsessed with power. So it all depends on the leader. That community that you referenced has kind of been scattered about. It's not as prevalent in that one Hilldale community as it once was. There still are members there, but they're kind of scattered throughout Arizona, Idaho, Utah, Nevada, really anywhere in the United States. So that's kind of where it's at. And all of it actually depends on whoever is leading the church at the time.
How does police I know that they have challenges when it comes to finding people who have been missing, but like, how does police in Idaho and Utah, I guess, interact with the FLDS church, knowing that, in Warren Jeffs' case, he was accused of having child brides, of sexual assault, of all the things he was convicted of. How does the legal system view the FLDS?
It can be tricky. In Elizabeth's case, she had to go to court and go through the legal system to gain full custody of her children back from her ex-husband. And he would file motion after motion after motion after motion in court to the point that he was declared a vexus litigant. He could no longer file anything. He was spending countless money to try to get his children from his wife in the legal system. So they're willing to, I guess, cooperate or file things if it benefits them. But if it doesn't benefit them, they're not going to cooperate. And they, back to your very first question about these revelations, if that's what the leader of the church is saying, that the children must be gathered in at all costs, that's what they're going to do. They're not going to cooperate with the police. And so the police can have challenges. It's trying to find them. Jefferson County, it's a small agency in rural Idaho. They don't do big, huge crime rings and stuff like that. So they're relying on the FBI and they're relying on other agencies to help them, but it can be tricky.
And then I guess for you, and you've covered a lot of high profile stories in Idaho, what is it like to cover the FLDS church?
I tell you what, the other day when I got word that these other two kids were gone, my heart just dropped because it's not a normal missing kid case. I hate to say that because no missing kid case is normal, but a lot of
Sure.
these cases, a kid goes missing and then they're found at a friend's house, or they're found at the playground, or they're found at school, wherever. The fact that her two kids are missing, and that this is now happened to her twice, the first one that disappeared and now these other two, it's just so frustrating. Now, I will say that this time around, there has been far more action, it seems, by the media, by law enforcement agencies, as far as there was an Amber Alert that went out, which didn't go out the first time. I think people are realizing with these revelations and with the encouragement of social media that this is a serious thing that needs to be looked at. These two kids could be in Idaho. They could have made their way to Arizona. Elizabeth believes that they might still be hiding out in Idaho till things settle down a bit, and then they might get moved somewhere else. But they really could be anywhere. And hopefully, with the increased attention, I mean, coming on your program right now, hopefully stuff like that can help to help find them.
Because I also noticed too, kind of talking about the police and the church and how people view cases like this is in, I think it was Jefferson County's first post. They said that they believe that the kids left willingly because of religious beliefs. But then I know an organization you've talked with, Help,
Right.
on their Facebook page, it was FLDS abduction was
Right.
kind of the headline. Does that create challenges when it comes to the resources needed? Because from the law, if you have, and they're minors, so that factors in. But I think of for some people to go back to the church against the will of a parent who's on the outside, that law enforcement might look at that and say like, well, this was a kid who wanted to leave in the past and then they're leaving this time.
It very well could be. Right. This is a teenager that wanted to go. He willingly walked away. He wasn't snatched out of his bed. He wasn't held at gunpoint. He left. And if we find him, we spend all this time and resources and attention, and we find them and put him and her back with mom. Who's to say he doesn't run away tomorrow or in 2 days or in 3 days? Because these kids are told these things. You must be with here. God has commanded you to be with us. So yeah, it creates all sorts of challenges with law enforcement. They keep running away if they do. But at the end of the day, this mother has full custody. Legally, she has full custody. Legally, the police are investigating it. The Amber Alert has gone out. These kids, if hopefully they are found, they should be with their mother until they're 18. And I will say the mom says she feels horrible about it. She's been watching her kids so closely for months and years. I mean, they slept in her room. Her son slept on the couch, and her daughter would sleep in the bed with her because she wanted to keep an eye on them, but also because they were nervous. They were scared. They'd have nightmares. These are kids that were raised in a very sheltered environment, and now they're going out into the quote real world. So it's a big adjustment. So she was watching them 24/7, and it just happened to be that 2-hour block when she goes to Bible class that they're gone. That they're taken. And she was a mess when I talked to her on Monday right after the kids disappeared. She was very, very emotional, and then she said, I realized I got to get out and speak about it. And I checked with the law enforcement today. They've had thousands of tips that have come in, thousands that have come in over the past week. Most of them, well, the majority so far haven't been real credible, but at least people are paying attention. The one challenge is you see anybody in an old fashioned prairie dress, if that's what you want to call it, with long hair, and you might think that's them. Well, it hasn't been them, but hopefully one of these tips does lead to them.
Right. Does the FLDS have any I think of mainstream churches where you have like a spokesperson who communicates their side from media? Maybe they've had a protest in the past you talked to. I mean, how do you talk to members of the church?
We don't really. I mean, in the past they have. In the past they have had spokespeople that have come out and been very defensive of the church, that have been willing to go on camera, have been willing to give interviews. But over the past 4 or 5 years, that hasn't happened. And in this case, I've reached out to Elizabeth's husband, who she believes, ex-husband, I should say, who she believes was involved closely in abducting their daughter and son, and no response. And I think it's more of we don't care. We don't care what the media says. They're going to criticize us anyway. And it comes from the top. Warren Jeffs, he's never done a media interview ever. He represented himself during his trials in court. He would get up in court and just preach for an hour when it was his turn to speak. he calls the shots. If he comes out and says do a media interview, someone will do one. But if he's not going to say that, I think people are too nervous about, maybe saying the wrong thing and getting kicked out of the church.
And then just lastly on Jeff's, how does he get his mess? I know he has these revelations that are sent out. What's the kind of the channel it goes from prison to get to then the people on the outside to spread it across where now members of the church are living?
I think it's done in a variety of different ways. One is that he does write. He will write stuff out and he could mail it out. One of the main things from what I have been told is that he will call his son or members of the church on the phone and dictate it on the phone, and they will write it. And the organization you referenced, HELP, has posted, we have too on eastidahonews.com, the revelations. Yeah. And you can see there's photos included. And some of it reads like old-fashioned scripture, like you're reading the Bible or something, where it is very scripturesque. And I've been told that he sometimes will put out multiple revelations a day, just about random stuff, whatever you can think of. So he is still very active in doing his stuff. The church at one time had a lot of money. Unclear now how much money they still have. So I imagine it's still a lot, but not as much as it once was. So they have the resources to get the word out. The question is, how long will the membership last, and what will happen to these children who have vanished and are missing?
Yeah, and I know that we're putting their pictures up and information on where people can go if they have information about these two missing teenagers out of Idaho. Nate Eaton, news director of East Idaho News. So great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Once again, here are pictures of Allen Fischer and Rachelle Fischer. Allen is standing at 5'9", weighs around 135 pounds. Rachelle is 5'5", and weighs about the same, 135 pounds. She was last seen wearing a dark green prairie dress with braids, and then Allen was last seen in a light blue shirt with blue jeans and shoes similar to Crocs. If you're in the region, in that area, anything about where their whereabouts may be, and you're watching this video, contact the authorities. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.